you found the skeleton, how would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Jackson with Jackson number 15.
How embarrassing.
I know, it is very embarrassing. Victims question Grifter. Of course, the victims are the audience members, and the Grifter is Charles Jackson, who probably already collected money from them for just spouting abject lies at their faces. This is a talk that he's giving about human evolution, which is a cool topic that I wish I knew more about, although I certainly know more about it than Charles Jackson and Bad Jackson. However, I have with me someone who almost certainly knows much more about it than I do. Jackson Wheat. Jackson, say hello to the lovely audience and introduce yourselves to those fools among them who don't know who you are.
Hello. Also, I don't know if that's necessarily true that I know more about it than you do. I am certain that you know quite a bit, and you are underplaying yourself.
That is possible, but maybe.
I'm just a nobody, just a student.
You're a student, a TA in a botany lab. You work at a place that teaches people about animals.
Okay, those are all true things. Yes.
You have a YouTube channel that is amazing and great, and you are the premier expert on YouTube of whale penises.
That is a fact. I can confirm that. I am the whale penis guy.
Yeah, you're like the whale penis whisperer, if you.
A movie came out recently called The Whale. I don't know if it had whale penises in it, or whales at all, actually, but it's called The Whale, so I have to assume it does.
Yes. Well, I mean, you should see it and then assess it for scientific accuracy of the whale penis.
Will do. I'll give a blow by blow, as it were.
All right, and we also have a membership milestone from Dark Law Dragon, who's been a member for 9 months and is at the tetrapod level. And Dark Law Dragon says AIG is a bag of broken spears with a Godzilla, excuse me, emoji, which gives us our first drink of the night, and we're gonna get diving right into the drinking rules. Okay, guys, so here's the thing. These Tuesday night streams are in fact drinking streams. I am drinking a Kilt Lifter Amber Ale. Jackson is, I'm sure he's drinking green tea with a nice healthy pour of vodka.
Sure.
There you go.
I'm not denying it.
Guys, here's the thing, first of all, before we get into this. If you choose to participate with alcohol, please know your limits. Be careful. Don't drink too fast or too much. Also, if you decide to drink with us, do not afterwards go out and operate heavy machinery or drive a car or even ride a bike. Stay in a nice, safe place. If you need to travel, have someone else who is sober do the driving, whether that be a sober friend or family member, or just calling a taxi or a ride-sharing app. Just, play it safe. Also, this is a game that you play at your own risk if you play with us. I do not accept liability or responsibility or any guilt if you decide to play along and then do something silly that costs you or anyone else life, limb, injury, damage to property, anything like that. That's on you. Be careful. Also, if you want to play along without alcohol, if you want to play along with water, tea, coffee, or if you want to vape along, I don't care. All of those are fine. This is a zero pressure. You don't have to drink with us stream. You can even play along without the alcohol. Lots of people do. And for $10, Too Young to Feel This Old says, AIG is a bag of peepees. Jackson, I just started reading The Rocks Were There. Very excited. First,
thank you.
Take a drink.
And I appreciate it.
Yeah, The Rocks Were There is very good. I have my copy signed by the other author, R.J. Downard. Jackson, we're going to have to get you to sign my copy.
Oh yeah, that's right. All you guys went over there. I have not been over there. Big sad.
Yeah,
I was very sad.
Come visit, Jackson.
I was so jelly. I was the major jelly.
Yes, come visit. It'll be fun. Anyway, so the drinking rules. First, we'll start out with the ones that have already been used, which is to say that if you super chat anything to the effect that AIG are a bag of dicks, we will take a drink. That goes all the way back to when AIG decided to copyright claim basically anyone who had ever used any of their footage. It affected me, it affected Paul Enns from Paulogia, it affected Vice Rhino, Godless Engineer, I'm pretty sure it affected a whole bunch of other people. It probably affected like Logic and stuff like that. It affected me, Erica. So, yeah. It's pretty annoying, especially since some of the things that they flagged on my channel included footage of theirs where they also used fair use to use other people's footage, almost certainly without their permission. So that was always fun. So we take a drink anytime you super chat, anything like that. Also, if you're a channel member, you gain access to the emojis for the channel, among which are 3 kaiju: Godzilla, King Ghidorah, and Mothra. If you send any super chat or member milestone with one of those, we will take a drink for it. Additionally, if there are any memberships to the channel membership gifted, take a drink for each gifted membership, which means, hey, you give 10, we take 10 drinks. Now, I do actually have a quick apology on that grounds. We were recently just over the threshold to get the next emoji, but by the time I made that emoji and went to upload it, we had fallen back below it. So, my apologies. We should have had another emoji, but I wasn't on the ball enough, and I was going to add a pelagic tunicate so people can annoy me with it. But I have the emoji saved, so when we go back above that threshold, if we do, that'll be the next emoji. But let's get into the... Oh, also, if you audibly hear Godzilla or Mothra, we'll take a drink for that. That happens sort of at random. Now, we'll also take a drink if Charles Jackson is just too dumb, if he tells a joke that doesn't land, if he gets something factually true, then we will take a drink. But it has to be something he's not just quoting, right? If he just quotes something that's true from some scientist, that doesn't count. He has to actually have it in his brain. Then it comes out, he says it, and it's true. And then we take the drink. We'll also take a drink if he tells a story that didn't happen. If he mentions the National Socialist German Workers' Party or the various prominent members or leaders of it, or various important activities that they were up to, say between, like, I don't know, the 1920s and the 1940s or so, I will take a drink for that. Also, if it's not clear what Bad Jackson's answer is going to be, and either myself or Good Jackson can figure it out, and then we're right about that, and we'll take a drink for confirmed prediction, and I think that's it. I think I covered it. Jackson, are there any that you remember that I'm forgetting?
Not offhand.
Okay. And Too Young to Feel As Old has demonstrated the so far existing channel emojis. They're pretty great. We've got the Dapper Dino, we've got the Tetrapod, the Top Hat Kent, the Monocle, Thumbs Up Murphy, Godzilla, Mothra, Majkha, which of course is Klingon for well done with a smiley face behind it, King Ghidorah, Citation Needed, Hetak, if you want to call someone a mean name in Klingon. We got Get Bent. We've got Huichat, which is like the opposite of Majkha. It's, bad. That's not good. We got Bingo for when we play Creationist Bingo. We got the drink emoji, and of course, the newest emoji, the AIG labeled bag of eggplants, which is pretty great in my opinion. But anyway, Jackson, unless you've got anything, we're going to hit play on this. We've only got 18 minutes and 41 seconds left of this.
We got this.
No, we don't.
Oh, sad.
All right. This, by the way, guys, is a Q&A section on Bad Jackson's human evolution thing. So we're about to start into a new question that we haven't heard yet.
More? Okay.
Oh, also, the audio sync on this is terrible. It's in the original, and given the horrible frame rate, I did not want to try and sit here and figure out how to fix it, given that we're at like 4 frames per second or something. So, sorry, guys.
I'm a fan, and some of the questions I have regarding the whole evolutionary thing is just an intellectual challenge I've always wondered about, which is...
All right, Steve Areno has just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, which went to Ian Debunked, and Snorefoot so far, and Robert Adsit, and Colin Dietrich, and that's 5. So there we go. We will take 5 drinks. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Thank you very much, Steve Reno. I'm not actually sure because I didn't check just before we went on. But as of earlier this morning, we were 6 away, which I think now means we're 1 away. So there you go. If we get 1 or 2 more, I will double check, and if possible, add the pelagic tunicate emoji. Anyway, here is the actual video. And also, thank you guys for getting in the tetrapod emojis. Tetrapod emoji is how we welcome new members.
The idea that not only one member of a species has to cross the species barrier, but
Oh, Jesus.
The species barrier. This is going to be...
Oh,
This is going to be the Ray Comfort. You have to get a boy and a girl to evolve into the next species at the same time so they can get married and have kids.
oh,
That's what this is going to be.
presently, that is exactly what that is.
Okay.
You know what? No, I'll just wait for the end. I'll just wait for the whole question.
it has to find a mate who has likewise crossed the species
Just
barrier
drink.
in such a way as to
Just
either
drink.
breed to true, or it has to be able to breed back across the species barrier which it has crossed. And at some point that becomes a little bit difficult for me to get my head around that happening as many times it has to have happened. But I am going to challenge on the idea of sort of the negative trend of intelligence, because I don't think that holds up. I think what you're looking at in modernity is an increase in innovation, possibly a decrease in pure invention. But when you consider the propagation of information and of ideas that has occurred in the last 150 to 200 years, and the fact that information is now more readily available, and so what we're seeing is much more, as you said, sort of putting together these various pieces in creating
Pieces.
new ways or knowledge. In my lifetime, certainly, and I think about my grandfather's lifetime,
there a
going from
question in here?
we have a picture of him on a conestoga.
Yeah, hopefully, other than how do you have a new species if a mommy and a daddy don't get evolved at the same time? Hopefully there's more than that.
We'll talk about that in a moment. Yeah, we'll talk about that
Yeah.
once he gets to the end.
Yeah, the way we like to do it for these is that before the Q&A, the question part of the Q&A is done, hear them out, and then we give our answer, and then we see what's wrong with Jackson's answer. But also, I want to say, we should, if you refresh this page, have a new emoji, I believe. You should double check on that. Also, Carrie Bronson, who's been a member for 21 months and is at the annual level, says, "Are we about to agree with the audience member?" Not entirely. Oh yes, there is in fact now a new emoji. It is a pelagic tunicate, and it's horrifying, and I hate it, and I hated making it. And it also kind of looks like a toy specifically for adults. But then again, I base it on the actual animals, and they also kind of look like toys for adults.
Okay, I would like to raise. It could also look like a water wiggler. If you don't know what that is, it is a toy.
Sure.
It's a toy for children because we sell them at the aquarium.
I definitely hope that they are not used only by adults. Here we go.
No, it's a toy for children.
Oh. All right, here we go.
Wagon, and then living to see the space shuttle. And in my lifetime, remembering in the 1980s when I bought a TRS-80 Model 4 and had a Commodore 64 with a cassette tape drive, to carrying in my pocket a phone that has access to the entire world knowledge base, relatively speaking, it's pretty darned impressive, and I don't think it's really slowed up. I think it has changed in its nature. So I would agree we are not seeing the same pure invention that was occurring previously, but we are seeing a much greater innovation occurring, which is putting together various pieces to create new knowledge. So just sort of to challenge that one idea.
Well,
What
Okay.
was the question? There was no question in there. I don't even know.
The question was essentially, I think we've had a lot of technological advancement in the last century or so, which I agree with. So
Sure.
I challenge you on the point that we haven't there, Dr. Jackson, which I agree with him about. But
Oh,
let's
that's
start.
right. He did say that.
Right, yeah,
That's
it was
right.
one of the more ridiculous things he said. Yeah. But let's start with the we need a mommy and a daddy to evolve at the same time, otherwise we don't get a new species. Would you like to start with that one?
Sure. I'm actually, so as it happens presently, I am reading Speciation, the widely read textbook on speciation by Jerry Coyne and H. Allen Orr. And as far as I've seen, I'm only about 100 pages into it at this point, but I have not seen at any point where they argue that species barriers are crossed one individual at a time.
The only examples that I can think of are events of polyploidy, where you go from being like having 2 sets of chromosomes to 4. And now suddenly you're in an isolated species and you can interbreed with other members of the former species who are now polyploid to the same degree as you.
Yes.
So, but other than that very rare example, which also, given that it mostly happens in plants who happen to be usually both male and female, it's not usually a big problem at that point. Because you can just self-cross. And is it ideal? No. But does it work? Yeah.
Right. When species form, and we're talking about over the course of generations, so not as, these sort of instantaneous polyploid events, you typically have a buildup of these, what are called isolating mechanisms. So you have pre- and post-zygotic barriers. So, very simply, what that just means is pre-zygotic barriers are things that prevent zygotes from forming, and post-zygotic barriers are things that prevent the offspring from reproducing. Mm-hmm. So for pre-zygotic barriers, you can have behavioral differences. So, maybe maybe these 2 organisms have like different mating rituals, or they mate at different times of the year, or at different, levels of the forest canopy or something like that, preventing them from mating, or from crossing. There can be gametic differences. So, for instance, if you have 3 sets of chromosomes and another species has 2 sets of chromosomes, maybe aneuploidy will happen. So you get this unequal, you get this mismatch between the chromosomes, and so you can't have offspring forming. Maybe a zygote forms, but after some number of divisions, it just kind of breaks down. Or even if they're born, maybe they're sickly and they don't survive very long. And then you have post-zygotic barriers. So the most common one that we think about is like hybrid sterility,
like mules.
Or hybrid inviability, like in mules. Yeah. So there's this sort of general trend in organisms called Haldane's rule. Haldane's rule basically says the offspring that is heterogametic is more likely to be sterile. So heterogametic means that it has 2 different sex chromosomes. So for like mammals and flies, for instance, dipterans, our chromosome system is like XY. So males have XY chromosomes and females have XX. Whereas for like birds and lepidopterans, the moths and butterflies, they have what is called a WZ chromosome system. So so it's not males who are WZ, it is actually females who are WZ, because their system works
opposite of XY.
Kind of opposite of ours, yeah.
Yep.
So you have like a female determining region rather than a male determining region. And
now, real quick, we have a few things to read. So first, Shipfish who's been a member for 10 months and is at the tetrapod level, sends OMG Tunicate Ghidorah. So we take a drink for Ghidorah. Tunicate, heart emoji, Tunicate. And yes, there are now pelagic tunicates that you can send me. I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying you can. Then, My Unfinished Journey says, AIG are a galleon full of Gryffindors, and we will take a drink for that. And then Skeletor over 9,000, who's been a member for 3 months and is at the amniote level, says, AIG are a bag of pelagic tunicates with a pelagic tunicate emoji. And yes, just like all the pelagic tunicates, they should be destroyed. Take a drink. Goodness. I knew I would regret the pelagic tunicate emoji. All right, sorry, Jackson. Please continue.
Oh, okay. Just sort of one final point on this is also, as Dapper pointed out, with the exception of like polyploid events, these are essentially always population level events. Mm-hmm. So it is not one individual who becomes a new species. It is the population moving as a whole, because they are all sharing genes, sharing alleles. And so it is moving as a whole towards a new species.
And as this happens between 2 different populations who are in the process of speciation, these things build up over time, and they're not binary, right? Like, there are different levels of interfertility and different levels of, say, behavioral barriers to mating and things like that, right? So, initially, there will be very few barriers, and the groups will interbreed very readily. But eventually, they become more and more, and it becomes less and less likely for them to interbreed. So, for instance, you can get things like lions and tigers can have fertile hybrids. In fact, the females are usually fertile. Female tigons and ligers are usually fertile, whereas males are almost always infertile. But then you have the more extreme rule. Right, but then you have the more extreme rule where mules. Now, there have been, I believe, 3 historical instances that have been verified of a female mule giving birth to a viable offspring. But, like, think about how many female mules there have been in the history of the world. Because it's a lot. Because they're intentionally bred by people. Because mules have some of the advantages of donkeys and some of the advantages of horses, and have few of the drawbacks of either. So they're a very handy animal to have, but you need horses and donkeys to get them. You can't just breed mules from other mules. So yeah, think about how many female mules there have been, people have had and kept and raised. And we can say for certain that no more than 3. Sorry, we can't say for certain that any more than 3 have ever reproduced. That's a much more extreme level of incompatibility. And then we have animals like that are even more distant, right? Just can't interbreed, even though they really do seem like they're related. Like we have like the maned wolf and the gray wolf. No known hybrids between these species. But they're still canines, and even most creationists are like, yeah, no, they're the same species. So when it comes to the challenge that this guy gave to Bad Jackson about the technology thing from way earlier in this video, I mostly agree with him. I think it's silly to say that the technological advancements of the last century or two have paled in comparison to the technological innovations. And basically what it comes down to is you invent the easy, basic stuff first, because it's still available to be invented at first, and then it becomes harder and harder to invent something radically new. So, like, before the first wheel was invented, yeah, okay, the first wheel was a big, brand new thing. And there have been lots of refinements to it. I don't want to, drive a car that's using a stone wheel from, the Stone Ages or something. That sounds like a nightmare. But, like, yeah, it's not a surprise that refinements are what happens after the big, obvious things are invented. But that doesn't mean that there's less invention. If anything, there's more invention. If new things invented significantly change our lives, all the time. I'm talking to you on one of them. There's this thing called the internet. It has radically transformed the way business and information exchange and even entertainment works. Because you guys are here primarily for entertainment and some education. And it wouldn't be possible for me to have done this just like, a couple decades ago. This wouldn't have been a thing. So like, yeah, big changes. All right. Jackson, you have anything to add about the technology thing?
Nope.
All right, well, let's see what Bad Jackson has to say.
The genetics of our brains and the building up of mutations, bad mutations, not the kind that give you superpowers like on X-Men.
Okay, first, they're not all bad mutations there, so we'll take a drink for Dr. Charles Jackson just saying, mutations are bad. That's not the case. The vast majority of mutations are neutral. Slightly higher proportion in any given environment will be detrimental or deleterious. An even smaller, but not zero proportion will be advantageous in a given environment. All right, here we go.
Is being documented now. This is an article about that. Even Isaac Newton admitted that he was building on people's past work. He said, if it appears that I've been able to see so far, it is because I have been standing on the shoulders of giants. So he gave credit to...
What? No one's claiming that they're just coming up with things out of the ether.
Yeah, I don't know what
does that even mean?
The only thing I can think of is that he's saying that humans should still be so smart they can just pop up brand new ideas without any help from the past, without anyone telling them old ideas, without anyone showing them previous evidence. But that's just dumb. That's just asking us to start over in like the Iron Age, or not the Iron Age, like the Stone Age. There we go. Oh, every single generation. Sorry, but no, that's completely moronic, and no one is claiming that we haven't been building on previous knowledge. The thing is that we've gotten better at it. Everyone was building on previous knowledge, right? You go all the way back to like the first Homo sapiens, and they were building stone tools. But their pre-Homo sapien ancestors were also building stone tools. But they were ones that were cruder and less efficient. And you go all the way back, and chances are that like you can go back really far in hominin evolution, or you stop having animals that could produce tools of at least a basic nature. I mean, look, chimpanzees are basically in their own very early Stone Age, right? We have a chimpanzee archaeological record. You can find stone tools chimpanzees tens of thousands of years ago used. And they currently learn how to use stone tools from their parents and community members. And if one of them manages to make an innovation to make an even better stone tool, you can bet that will get passed down. But chimpanzees do that very slowly, because they're not super great at passing down information, nor are they super inventive. Sorry. But with...
And
Go ahead.
did you see there was a recent paper that came out about capuchin monkey stone tools? Wasn't it? It was tools.
I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah, there was a thing about capuchin monkey tools, a tool site in South America. Now I have to find it. But anyway.
Well, yeah, while we do that, let's hear what else we have from Leo.
The people that laid the groundwork. And I think, yeah, we may be doing innovation. Most of that is for money. That is money driven.
And I'm just taking a drink for, because it's money driven, it doesn't count, as if innovation in the past wasn't also about profiting. You know that if you invent a new kind of plow that lets you plow your fields more easily, that makes you grow more grain, that's to your profit. Even if you're in a pre-money society, right, where there's no particular unit of exchange and like unit of measurement of worth or value, right? Like even without that, even just a pure barter economy, if you can suddenly produce more with the same labor, you have profited. That's why we do things, because here's the thing, right? When it comes to profit, right, if you're talking economically, it doesn't just mean that your dollar amount goes up, right? Because profit just basically means you have more value than you started with after this activity is done with, even if that's not measured in a particular currency. So if you are in a pre-industrial, pre-money society, you invent a new way to fish that gets you more fish per unit time. Well, guess what? You now either have more fish, which makes you fuller, or you can more easily barter with other people, or you can trade it in for more time doing other things, even if it's just leisure. The reason that humans invent new things is basically always for profit. It just might not be the profit in the way that you think of with like shareholders and financial statements. But yeah, just getting more time off as a hunter-gatherer is profitable. So I'm just going to take a drink for Charles Jackson apparently just not knowing what the word profit means.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we've always
okay, I guess that's okay.
used science to make our lives more like what we wanted them to be.
All right, I take it back. Apparently you do know what profit is. Maybe. Or at least this is compatible with it.
But we're not seeing minds like Eratosthenes and Aristotle, Socrates, Galileo, Copernicus, and Newton.
But he's like, okay,
Hawking believes
he's saying we're not seeing people coming up with the ideas we already came up with. Like,
yeah,
the reason these people are, that we remember these people, is they were the ones who, if not came up with it first, are the ones who formalized the idea. Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace went down in history as the guys who formalized evolution by natural selection. That's why we remember them. There's no point in, like, decades later, somebody else formalizing evolution by natural selection because it was already done. Likewise, there was no one would come up with the rules of like calculus again 100 years after, like Newton and Leibniz. Like, why? Why would you do that? What would the point be? It's already there.
Plus, additionally, there's the fact that when you're currently living with them, you don't know who the next, going down in history famous scientist is going to be, because we haven't established yet that those ideas are both true and a big shift, right? So right now, there might be some guy toiling away in some lab somewhere trying to figure out, like, some great explanation for some new phenomenon that we've observed about, like, galaxy formation in the distant past via the James Webb Space Telescope, right? But until he figures it out, and everyone else figures out that he's right, and it's a big shift in the paradigm of, like, galaxy formation, this is hypothetical, how would you know that he's going to be the next Isaac Newton or the next, Galileo? You wouldn't. So, yeah, I don't know what the point of this is. Too Young to Feel This Old says
Dapper Warren? I'm sorry.
Too Young to Feel This Old says for $5, the kiddos, Alaric and Esther, wanted to tell you hello and that they love the Dapper blanket. Too Young to Feel This Old, Alaric, Esther, hello. I'm very happy that you love the Dapper blanket. For those of you who don't know, the Dapper Dinosaur blanket that you sometimes see adorning the couch of Benthoven when we do Kent with Bent is something that you can buy on my Teespring store, which is linked in the description, as well as a number of other things you can buy: mugs, t-shirts, baby onesies, phone cases, all sorts of stuff, stickers. Sorry, Jackson, go ahead.
I don't remember.
Well, that's okay. We'll just keep going.
It must not have been important.
is one of those, with the four great ones, and if he does find the theory of everything, I think I'd have to agree with him that he belongs in that group. He's brilliant. We just don't have minds like that. What this guy says here,
Oh, now I
if an
remember.
average citizen from Athens of 100 BC were to appear among us, he or she would be among the brightest and most intellectually alive of our colleagues and companions, with a good memory, a broad range of ideas, and a clear-sighted view of important issues. Further,
So, it's the reason that, the reason that we don't have, like, gentlemen naturalists anymore is all of the things that they would do have been done. The reason that we don't have, like, people who just sit around in the square and, like, debate whether democracy is a good idea is, like, we have different forums for that, and also we kind of already have, like, argued about a lot of that at this point, and, like, how the world works, how do the stars sit in the heavens, and all that sort of stuff. Like, you have to go to school for years to study this kind of stuff. It's not just sit around and chat about it and just sort of reason out with a group about these things, right? People are specialized for different fields. This idea of, like, this weird romanticizing of, like, Athenians just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it. They're just people. They were just people.
They were.
They're like, they weren't inherently more intelligent than us, or inherently less intelligent. They were just people. Just normal people. But we have advanced in terms of our knowledge of the world beyond them.
Yeah, as Vishanti points out, things I can do, algebra. Things Plato can't do, algebra.
Right.
By the way, for $5, Carrie Bronson says, a guy called Fight the Flat Earth recreated the work of Eratosthenes, there we go, out of spite. Apparently we do get such minds nowadays. He's actually not the only one. There have been a number of people who recreated various versions of the Eratosthenes experiment to measure the shape of the Earth. And the fun thing is that he, along with some other modern Eratosthenes, have used more than 2 points. Because with 2 points, you can get an estimate for the size of the Earth, but only if you happen to then assume that the Earth is in fact roughly spherical. However, if you get more than 2, so 3 or more different observations from sufficiently distant locations, using that same technique, you can actually demonstrate that the Earth must be a globe. Because with 2 points, you could also simply triangulate the position of the sun to a single position above a flat Earth. But with 3 or more, you cannot, because you would get discordant positions. The sun would have to be in more than one place at the same time once you do it with more than 2 observers, which is pretty cool. So if I remember correctly, both MC2 and FTFE have both done that. And we don't do a whole lot of flat Earth stuff here, but I do enjoy the occasional flat Earth roasting. And also, I enjoy it when people hit like, and nearly 50 people in the chat right now have not done so. So help me out, guys. Here we go.
Or I would guess that he or she would be among the most emotionally stable of our friends and colleagues, because he's talking about the broken genes and how the genes, with copying errors through the generations, are building up. So
I don't even know who he is at this point, but whatever.
oh, this is a genetic end to it. You're right that, I mean, a cell phone is certainly superior.
Oh, okay, this is who. Trends in Genetic. 2012. Okay, so we're going back more than 10 years.
This is from a popular article.
Yeah, this is Cell Press.
Well, the article...
Science Daily, there we go.
Yeah, that's... Trends in Genetics is a journal, but he's citing a popular article.
That's odd. So here's the thing, right? There have been some studies that indicate that humans have, in at least some areas, lost some level of intelligence, but there's several problems with that. One is virtually impossible to measure intelligence in a way that's meaningful, at least between humans, right? You can make some kind of, say, statement about the relative difference between, say, a human and like a dog, right? They're fairly easy things to quantify there. But between humans, it gets tough, right? Because people are good at different things. There's more than one type of intelligence, as far as we can tell. It gets complicated. And third, to a large degree, this is if it's true, this is a very recent phenomenon. That's not because of the differences in mutations. Rather, it's because of the weakening of selection, because of how good modern medicine is and how good humans are at making enough food for no one to starve. Or very few people to starve, I should say. So this is not a buildup in detrimental mutations because mutations are just so bad and there's no way to weed them out. It's that there's no way to weed them out effectively because humans are so good at keeping themselves alive. They've largely removed most of the selection pressures in most of the places that they live. So it doesn't really help the point that evolution is just going downhill because of genetic entropy. Most species aren't vastly altering their environment to keep themselves alive while producing vast quantities of food using artificial fertilizers and things like that. It's not really a thing most species can do.
Superior to Alexander Graham Bell's first phone and all of that. We've done that, and we've gone from the kind of stuff.
But the phone was just an advancement and a little tweak on the telegraph there. Remember? That doesn't count. Literally anything he says, I can just say, well, it's just,
right.
an extension of some previous, because it always is. So yeah, using Jackson's own standards, literally nothing counts as an invention.
Yoga wagons to space shuttles. But we had jet aircraft, jet airliners in the 1950s too.
Rockets aren't jets. I'm taking a drink. I don't know what this is. Tell you what, Bad Jackson, when we get space jets, let me know. I'll probably be right after space helicopters. If you guys don't know, neither jets nor helicopters work in space or in vacuums, which is one of the reasons I thought the first version of the hypertube was absolutely insane, because the idea was to pump down the tube to near space levels of vacuum and then run jet-powered maglev trains. I'm like, what are you going to use the jet with? You don't have any air. That's the whole point of the vacuum tube. But whatever, Elon Musk is space Jesus, and he's definitely going to save the human race by being a moron, apparently.
Dapper, all I'm saying is I am all in favor of him taking all the richest people to Mars.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fully behind it, 100%.
I love that none of his fans are like, hey, what if we start small and have a self-sustaining city in the highest reaches of the Himalayas or in Antarctica, a place that's far easier to survive than Mars, but also so difficult to survive in that humans have never bothered to permanently settle there. What if we did that? I think that would be a good test platform for his ideas about a self-sustaining city on Mars. Because quite frankly, if you can't do it in Antarctica, you sure as hell can't do it in the much more dangerous Mars.
Yeah.
I just see there were the line, from 1900 to 1955 up to 1955 to 2015. It's just not. Our progress as far as real discovery.
Which you can't define, dude. Because you're just like, well, it's not based on previous things, but they all are. Just taking a drink for this. This is just so dumb. Okay.
Or invention has slowed down. Now, in the year 1910, I think it was, the head of the U.S. Patent Office said, everything that could be invented has been invented.
And then the U.S. Patent Office did not issue any more patents ever again, because unless he was right about that, or that, then you would have to keep issuing patents. So, guys, what do you think? Do you think that maybe patents were issued after 1910, or no? Just just out of curiosity. I'm not going to make it a poll.
Spitballing.
But yeah, you can just put one in the chat for yes, there were patents issued in the U.S. after 1910, and 2 in the chat for no. 1910 was the year the last patent was ever issued in these United States of America. Just curious to know what you guys will think.
1910. So, at that time they thought we'd reached, this is it.
Is that what they thought, or was it just one guy who was, being a little off the cuff and a little funny?
Dapper, that kind of makes me think of the thing. I can't remember who it was. It was a mathematician who was like, it would be physically impossible to make airplanes.
Oh, right.
After the airplane had already been built or whatever.
Yeah,
That's what that reminds me.
So I'm seeing overwhelmingly ones in the chat. So yeah, as it turns out, it is in fact factually the case that since 1910, the U.S. Patent Office has in fact issued patents. Weird, right? Who'da thunk? Here we go.
They've gone about as far as they can go, and really, we hadn't at that point. But
you don't say.
The entire world changed in my great grandmother's lifetime.
Okay, so we're using number of patents as a proxy here. So let's see if we can pull up a graph that is number of U.S. patents per year over time. We're just going to Google that. Because my favorite thing is when only one Google search, especially when it's top results, are enough to completely blow a creationist claim out of the water. Okay, so remember, if in fact Dr. Charles Jackson is right, we should have fewer patents issued than the previous year for a long time. So I'm looking right now at a chart, and once I figure out what everything is said, Unity patents, all origin, patent grants. Okay, here we go. Total patent grants. That's the column I want. So I'm going to link this to you guys, and I might try to put it up on screen. Give me a second. It'll be hard to read because the text is very small, but
small boy.
It should work. Let me see about getting this onto the main monitor. Yeah. So, main monitor. So what we want to look at is this total patent grants column. This is this column here that I'm zooming in on. Oh, I lost it. So let's see. Total patent grants. Okay. So that is, we're starting at 1963. 48,971. 1964, 50,389. 1965, 66,647. 1966, 71,886. Oh, now we do go down a little bit the next couple of years. 1967, only 69,098. 1968, 62,714. 1969, 71,000, back up again, 230, down a little bit. 1970, 67,964. All the way up to 81,790. Let's just skip ahead a little bit. Let's go up here, and we're getting to 1991, 106,696. Skip up a little bit. 2003, 187,012. Skip up again. Say 2016, 333,583. And then we'll go to 2020, the last year for which I happen to have data, 388,900. So not only is that way more than zero, I feel like most years there was an increase in the number of patents. What do you think, Jackson?
Seems like it.
Yeah, it seems like there's a broad upward trend, starting all the way down here in 1963 with 48,971, going all the way to what, as far as I can tell, is the highest number issued was in 2019 at 391,103, then down a little bit to 388,900, which is still going to be, record breaking, except for 2019 being unusual. So yeah, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the idea that patents can be used as a proxy for whether or not humans are advancing technologically. If it is, then it indicates that they are, and they're doing so at an accelerating rate. So thanks there, Dr. Jackson, for shooting yourself in the foot by wanting to use patent issuances in the United States as a proxy for whether or not humans are still innovating. Vishanti for $5 says, Einstein did his best work when he was working as a patent clerk. Dr. Peter Venkman, 1984. Yes, the venerable Dr. Peter Venkman did in fact say that, and I'm going to go ahead and take his word for it, because anyone who can both prove the existence of ghosts and save New York City from not one, but 2 apocalypses. Expert in my book. Here we go.
I was talking with you about my great-grandmother who taught me how to tie double knots in my shoes. She was born in 1892, lived to be 96. But the stuff she saw, the whole world changed. The world is changing now in my lifetime, but not in quite that way.
Yeah, it's changing in different ways because the ways it's changing your grandmother's day is already done. What are you talking about, man? I'm taking a drink. You want people to reinvent cars? Like, what do you actually want, man? All right, here we go. This is going to be the dumbest thing.
Communications technology that's advancing because it's along the whims of our people. Well, yeah, this is something, it's one of those discussions that we could have. But I definitely do not think that ancient humans were less intelligent than us, given the achievements that they made.
They weren't?
Many thousands.
Yeah, no, there's no evidence that they were. Look, I'm sure that there was a genius here and there who was better than the average person today. That has got to be the case. By and large, the human species has not changed significantly in cognition since they became anatomically modern Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jackson, did you have any?
Oh, you're right.
Oh, okay.
Years ago, this is. Casey.
If someone were to attempt to convince you that humans evolved from an ape-like ancestor, what are the specific genetic and fossil pieces of evidence you would require them to provide? And if they were able to provide this evidence, would you be willing to change your mind?
Okay. So
That's
a really
interesting.
good question. Yeah. Also, for Steve Arena for $5 says, do you know how much a patent clerk earns? Dr. Ray Stans, 1984. Actually, I do not know how much a patent clerk earns. However, I bet it's more than, a science-based extermination startup that runs out of the petty cash, because this is the last of the petty cash. There is no more petty cash, in case you guys didn't know. But yeah, basically, I would demand essentially what we already have in terms of genetics and fossils, right? We have a superb and extremely smooth set of transitional fossils, going from basically like Sahelanthropus chinensis all the way to anatomically modern Homo sapiens, where basically you can pick any like brain case size, essentially any level of like proportions of things like the face, like with the chin and the eyebrow ridges and muscle attachment points, about just about any shape of like the torso, because the torso becomes less conical and more, sort of tubular, I suppose. In Homo sapiens, and also with the genetic evidence where like every single chromosome except for the 2 to 2A and 2B matches up structurally almost exactly, also except for the Y, but that's because the chimpanzee Y chromosome is weird and highly derived. And then you have like the perfect fusion zone, complete with telomeric regions smack in the middle, as well as 2 different centromeres in human chromosome 2, one of which has been deactivated. And the best counter I've heard is, there's a gene inside the fusion region. Yeah, it's a telomeric gene, and it's not really functional, although it does occasionally get transcribed. So yeah, I don't know what better evidence there could possibly be than that. Other than, I guess, watching it in real time, but I don't think that's an option. What do you think, Jackson?
No, I'm ready to hear what Charles Jackson says so that we can say whether or not we already have it.
Yeah, and also I would go ahead and say that what he's going to say is going to be something that's impossible.
Yeah.
Something that would probably disprove evolution. and or that there is nothing that would convince him, because we all know that his ideas are not based on the evidence, right? They're based on a pre-judged conclusion. The Bible is literally true, and it cannot be otherwise, no matter what the evidence is. None of this has been arrived at because of the evidence. This has just been a post hoc exercise in seeking out rationalizations that you can pretend are based on evidence to support the idea that you came to for non-evidential reasons. But yeah, let's see what happens. Is anything going to
That
happen?
would be a
There we go.
human positional resistance to change kind of question. What I'm more worried about.
Oh, he's just not going to answer the question?
He is
Fun.
not going to answer. No.
Awesome. Great dodge. That's, oh my, I hate, if he just dodges this,
womp.
I'm drinking.
Are the things that they themselves say should be convincing that they don't have.
Dude,
What?
No, he's not answering the question. I'm taking a drink. My goodness.
What is fossil or genetic evidence that would convince you?
That we don't have?
And even if you know it were there, would you be convinced of evolution? Well, let me tell you what they claim to have. Like, no, stop it.
Man, if I were in that audience, I would be ready with the next question, and it would be literally the exact same question, except prefaced with, well, I'm glad that you had that discussion, but back to this question.
Yep.
What they themselves say and then contradict themselves. I had a student in one of my classes say, well, Dr. Jackson, is there anything about evolution you do believe? And I said, yeah, the stuff where they don't contradict themselves about it.
Name one thing.
Yeah.
Literally one.
Or
one
just
thing.
name a contradiction that you think is happening.
It's the missing stuff, like I said, it's systematic. Now, if we actually
Such
did
as?
find...
You know, we don't get examples.
Example? Citation?
No.
Sir?
Oh, wait, where's my citation needed? There it is. Yeah, citation needed there, Bad Jackson.
a missing link that actually is really part monkey, part human.
Eh.
We're going to take a drink for part monkey, part human. Guess what part monkey humans are, Jackson?
All humans?
No, what percentage monkey is a human?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if you mean actual transitional fossils that are on the hominin line morphologically and that are more basal than modern Homo sapiens as compared to, say, Miocene apes, I mean, we just spent most of this whole series going over them. And then Bad Jackson would basically just pretend that they didn't exist or that they didn't count, mostly because he was able to find two paleoanthropologists who disagreed about exactly how they should be interpreted, which is it's sort of like finding two different people who disagree on exactly how the Battle of Bunker Hill in the American Revolutionary War proceeded. Like, oh, I think the British advancement actually came up right on this particular side of the hill, and that this many of them died. And then the other guy's like, but based on this letter from this soldier, I think they actually came up slightly in a different place, and then this other number of British soldiers died. And then you come here as your Revolutionary War denier self and say, this obviously means there was no American Revolution. Have fun being subjects of the British Crown, Americans. No,
I would actually love that.
That's directly parallel to his basic line of argumentation, as well as the basic line of argumentation in the entirety of Contested Bones, with the exception of the Chimera species, which is a different argument that is, if anything, more dumb. But yeah, the fact that you can find some paleoanthropologists who disagree about the details of some genus or species does not in any way negate the overall story. But, okay.
That actually could be shown to be a part of a story, a bigger story that led, but it wouldn't just be humans, monkeys to humans. It would be fish to monkeys.
I mean, well, we've got basal,
It just makes me wanna cry,
Sarcopterygians
honestly.
to tetrapods, already done. We've got basal sort of amphibian-like tetrapods to amniotes. Got that covered with things like parareptiles and whatnot. We've got basal amniotes to synapsids, basal synapsids. We've got basal synapsids to therapsids, basal therapsids to mammaliforms, mammaliforms to mammals. Now, the exact transition between you know, very basal mammals to, or mammaliforms to, like, say, placental is a little bit trickier. But then, you know, we have from, you know, stem primates like Plesiadapiformes to actual monkeys is pretty well established. And then, you know, from basal simiiforms to Miocene apes, a little bit less. But then once you get to just past Miocene apes, it's great. So, I don't know. That seems pretty good to me. What do you think?
That sounds good to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've basically got almost every single little thing in there. And unless you want to say that the fossil record should be a perfect record of every single species, which literally no one thinks it is, even the most optimistic of people when it comes to the most well-preserved groups of organisms, which, by the way, not hominins.
No.
You got much better preserved lineages, like brachiopods, where probably 90% of all genera that have ever existed of brachiopods are preserved in the fossil record.
Although I'm here to talk about foraminifera. Let's get everybody on board with forams.
They are cool, but you and I are some of the only people who will think that, Jackson. Because we're giant nerds. Also, I have a few super chats. Goopdo3 for $5 says, reminds me of the Tumblr post making up a superhero that was part man, part skeleton. Yes.
Yeah.
Carrie Bronson for $5 says, if you oversimplify enough, you can pretend anything is internally contradictory. Yeah, that's true. My Unfinished Journey for $6.66 USD says, speaking of history, hail Nero. I mean, Nero was kind of sucked, but he did build a really cool palace over the burned down homes of a fire he totally didn't start. Instead, it was definitely the Christians for some reason, because it's not like they were also not living in, you know, the poorer parts of Rome that burned down. Yeah. Also, of course, you know, Christians well known for arson as a part of their religion. It's right in there. It's in, like, you know, in like John 6 or something. And then Jesus said unto the disciples, lo, I tell you, burn down the slums of Rome, then ye shall be glad. It's right there. All right.
I'm convinced.
Here we go.
I mean, the whole story, don't forget that the story says that bacteria turned into pterodactyls.
Yeah, and then Embiid
No.
says, yeah, we're going to rewind, but the Embiid says neither started it. Yeah, it's actually pretty unlikely that Nero started the fire. He did, however, not do a whole lot to put it out, and then he built a big old palace over it. So we're going to rewind a little bit and hear what he said about pterodactyls, which, by the way, it's pterosaurs. But anyway.
But it wouldn't just be humans, monkeys to humans. It would be fish to monkeys. I mean, the whole story, don't forget that the story says that bacteria turned into pterodactyls.
Nope, no, it does not.
One day, a bacterium metamorphosed into a Jurassic pterosaur,
We're going to take it.
and that's where babies come from.
Okay, so, Jackson, you're going to have to correct me on this one if I get this wrong, because
Okay.
you're better at this, right? But,
I don't know if that's true.
Jackson, let me give you compliments and be self-deprecating, man.
Dapper, have you ever tried to put, like, a crumpled up dollar bill into a vending machine?
Yeah?
That's what this is going to be like.
Ah,
You try to do
goddamn it.
that.
By the way, Eric Foxy for $2 says, AIG is a satchel of scrota. We will take a drink for that. Very nice. I do love all the clever ways people have to come up with different ways to say that AIG are a bag of dicks. It's awesome.
Yes.
It's really great. Anyway, so bacteria, and if I remember correctly, archaeobiota, which includes the archaea and the eukaryotes, share a
Is
common
that what they're calling it nowadays?
I think so. What are they
Whack.
calling it, as far as you know?
No, I didn't know there was like a total clade name for it. Now I thought, okay.
Look, I think it's a clade name. This is coming from the top of my head, right, guys? So,
It's
like,
whack.
double check me on
I like
this.
it though. I like it.
I think that's what it's called. But they share a common ancestor, and that common ancestor would neither be an archaeobiotan, nor would it be a bacteria. Right? Or bacterium, that's what I'm going. Because the common ancestor of two groups isn't in either group. It's in its own group, which in this case would just be, I guess, biota. It was a living thing. I guess we'll give you that. But yeah, it would not itself be a bacterium, nor would it be an archaean, nor would it be a eukaryote. So to say that bacteria evolved into pteranodons is just as silly as saying that, I don't know, that, say, alligators evolved into pteranodons. It doesn't make any sense, right? The split happened before that group existed. So yeah. Here we go.
That's the theory of evolution. And I've had people say to me, oh no, that's not what it says.
Yeah, that's because it's literally not what it says. I'm taking a drink. Just, also, this is probably a conversation that didn't happen, so we could just take a drink for that reason. I love how, like, Charles Jackson and, like, Matt Powell both take it as a point of pride that when someone points out that they're committing a straw man fallacy and that they're saying things about evolution that evolution actually doesn't support, or that people who accept evolution don't believe, and they're like, ha, it totally does, and it's still dumb. And then literally everyone else is like, no, it doesn't do that. That's not a thing.
Even the evolutionists disavow this. Like, yeah, because it's not what anyone says.
Right. And they're like, ha, but it is, and that's my counter. Like, oh, okay.
And their citation is always like a Fox or CNN article.
Yeah.
Like, about something. So,
Jackson,
yeah.
Can you believe that these Christians tell me that Christianity doesn't say that there are no continents besides Africa, Asia, and Europe, when it clearly does, and they just keep telling me it doesn't? What fools they are! Now, you tell me, dear audience, especially those of you who either are or may have been Christians, does that seem like a good critique of Christianity?
I feel like it's not.
I feel like it's not either, because I feel like most Christians wouldn't say that their religion does in fact teach that there shouldn't be a North or a South America or an Australia or an Antarctica.
Actually, Paul's letter to the Ephesians states that Australia cannot and will not exist.
Oh, was that what it says? Oh, I never put in the link to the table that I was reading from. Sorry, guys. That's my bad. There it is. If you want to open up the table from the Patent Office, it's actually from the U.S. Patent Office. It's like an official list of their own data internally. So I take the U.S. Patent Office as a reasonably authoritative source for the U.S. Patent Office. What do you think, Jackson? Does that seem reasonable?
That seems fair to me.
Okay. Cool. Here we go.
Oh yes, it is. Ask any biologist, and unless they're an abominable liar, they will have to tell you, yes, the theory says that bacteria, well, even the beginning of the X-Men movies.
Oh my god, please stop citing the X-Men. What?
So,
I'm taking a drink.
I'm going to use all of the authority of like a biology TA.
Okay.
And say, no.
Yeah, no.
Nobody, no class that I've ever TA'd for or taken has at any point even implied that pterosaurs came from bacteria. Not once ever.
And now, look, I'm not a biologist or even a biology TA. In fact, I don't even have a degree in biology. I have a degree in history. However, I do know plenty of biologists, and I am someone whom even the biologists I know say that has a pretty good grasp on biology overall. And I've actually put this kind of claim in front of the biologists that I know, and we're talking like PhD biologists, including ones who have, like degrees in evolutionary biology, and they also disagree. So either, essentially all biologists are abominable liars, as well as, I guess, all the textbooks and literally all the papers talking about the actual ancestry at the base of the tree of life. Unless all of that is lying. Essentially all of what evolution is in terms of the actual intellectual output. So either all of that's lying, or Dr. Charles Jackson's lying. So
who could it be? We'll never know.
Now, okay, we're going to put in a poll. Now, to be fair, this kind of poll is not very scientific because this is not a representative sample of, the population, nor do popularity polls determine truth. However, we're going to have a poll which is going to say, who is the liar? Bad, Jackson, all of biology, and turtles. Let me know, guys, in the poll, who you think is lying. All right, here we go.
Evolution. It is the way that our species has evolved from bacteria to the, reigning species on the planet. That the particles to people theory of evolution, of course, is there, that the Big Bang actually gave rise to the chemicals that turned into bacteria.
No, the Big Bang gave rise to hydrogen, helium, maybe a bit of lithium. Maybe. Subsequent
Smidge.
supernovae gave rise, well, subsequent fusion and then supernovae gave rise to the higher elements beyond that, as well as essentially all the lithium.
Here, I probably need to point out something here. Textbooks, college.
You know what? We've already swept right past our normal break time. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to take a quick break. You guys can listen to some music from Beethoven. I'm going to get a fresh bottle of beer, or when I run out of this current bottle. Then we will come back, and it'll be great. So, guys, hold on. Please don't leave. Hit like while you're watching this wonderful music, and we will be right back. Okay, we are finally back after Jackson Week took forever to come back. Forever. Like, you guys wouldn't believe how long it took for him to come back. Now, first I want to say, Dr. Tapioca Weasel gifted a Dabber Dinosaur membership, which went to Bortor Barbecue. I think I'm saying that roughly correctly. So we'll take a drink for that. Also, Nebulon, who's been a member for 13 months and is at the Amniote level, sent Dabber Dino emoji, Heartbreak emoji, and 2 Pelagic Tunicate emojis. Dr. Tapioca Weasel asks if I can remind you all why I dislike pelagic tunicates. It's because they should know their place, which is to be sessile filter feeders attached to some substrate, like a good God-fearing tunicate. Instead of just wandering around the ocean column, water column, like some kind of a fish or something. Also, now that Jackson Wheat has defended himself while muted, I will unmute him so that he can no longer defend himself, because that ship has already sailed.
I'll fight you.
Anyway, also, I want to point out, now that we are post-break, guys, this channel is something that is supporting itself right now, and I want it to continue to do that, and hopefully even get better. For one thing, I need a new webcam, because I would like to eventually do a face reveal, and I have to have a webcam for that. That kind of stuff comes out of the money the channel makes. Now, if you would like to contribute to that, because YouTube is extremely fickle, and sometimes I get a nice little bit of money in on it, and that's more than enough for the channel. Sometimes, well, I don't. So if you would like to make it so that it's easier for me to be able to have a confidence that I will have enough to support the channel month to month, there are a number of ways that you can support the channel regularly. The best one is probably Patreon, primarily because Patreon takes a smaller cut of the money you give them than YouTube does. That starts as low as $1 a month, or even less. You can go to just over $10 a month if you go annually. They're both annual for a discount and monthly things there. You can gain access to like 4 or something months worth of early access content. You get access to a special paid Discord server. Similarly, for the memberships, it starts at $1.99 a month, but you can go up to higher tiers. Higher tiers on both get you more perks. Also, both gain you access to the patron and members-only Discord server, which is one of the easier ways to get a hold of me. But we also have a fun community there. We support each other. People can go into like the venting and heavy stuff to get some emotional support, or just to talk about the horrible stuff that they're dealing with, whether it be in their own lives or just in the world generally. We have rooms for like gaming discussions, TTRPG discussions. We have a conlanging channel just for people who want to talk about linguistics and creating constructed languages. After these, we do like little watch parties. We're watching Power Rangers most weeks. We're in season 3 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. We're just going in chronological order, basically. Yeah, it's a good time. So if you want to help support the channel regularly, please take a look at that. Only if you can afford it. I am trying to get the channel to 1,000 per month on Patreon, because at that point I can be pretty well assured that the channel is not going to have to dip back into the red anytime soon. So please do help that if possible. Also, if a monthly or annual thing isn't your deal, but you still want to help support the channel, of course there are the super chats, the super stickers, the super thanks, buying memberships. But also, there is a merch store if you want to have something tangible for your contributions. Where, as I've already stated, there's lots of stuff like mugs and things like that. And if you want to support me with a purchase, rather than getting yourself something, I do have an Amazon wish list. It includes things all the way down from like just under $20 all the way to like $400 if you want to go really fancy and get me a brand new 4K monitor. And there's also steps in between. Some of it is stuff to help the channel out, like monitors, webcam, stuff like that. Some of it's just for me, like RPG books. None of them are D&D, so don't worry. No Wizards of the Coast on that list. But also there's just random stuff, like my favorite ramen is on there, if you want to get me a pack of my favorite ramen. And if none of that's great, just hit like. But that's enough commercial. Jackson, we're going to hit play. You ready?
Let's do.
Good.
In high school text.
Oh, wait, did we drink for the border? No, we did drink for the border barbecue.
How about the textbook that I teach out of?
Oh. Probably not going to trust that one there, Dr. Charles Jackson, because my guess is that you use a Young Earth Creationist nonsense book, but okay.
That bothers me when When they get to the evolution part, all the science is so good in all these things until you get to the evolution part.
Oh, what do you know? All the science is so good until you get to the part I happen to disagree with. Weird.
I would love to like read a technical paper with Charles Jackson and just see how little he understands any of it. Like, what specifically do you? What part of their materials and methods, their results, do you disagree with? Like, you can see their study had this statistically significant result based on this data. So, like, what in particular do you agree with or disagree with? Let's say
specifically.
I don't think we'll ever get an answer.
No. All right, here we go.
And then they just start telling these stories, and they even they even contradict themselves, which bothers.
Please, an example.
Citation.
I'm just gonna take a drink.
Me. Let's see. Process of evolution. Here we go. Oh no, that's a different page. How about origin of life stuff? When they get, especially the origin of life stuff, they contradict themselves on the same page, which bothers me.
Such as what?
He just can't find it though. That's the thing. Don't worry about it. It's
swear
in
they
there.
contradict themselves, guys. Bros, trust me, bro. It's here, bro, somewhere.
At some point in the next 10 minutes, which is exactly how long this video has left, I'm sure we'll get that.
All right, where am I going here? That one's a big one, isn't it? I knew it was in the book.
Oh my goodness.
What would convince me is if scientific observation.
What would convince you of humans
evolution.
being related to apes?
Right, specifically.
Of human evolution.
Not of abiogenesis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of course he went to that. He had to figure out the most ridiculous way to turn the conversation from, can you give us a reasonable burden of proof to meet for you to accept this thing as true, to, well, abiogenesis. It always comes back to abiogenesis.
Well, the thing is, abiogenesis is the part of the story of life on Earth that is currently the least well known. And I mean, I'm not going to pretend that that's not the case, but that's why they want to go there. It's because it's the place where it's the hardest to give firm answers.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Data didn't go against what the theory says, didn't go against the predictions of the theory of what we should actually see.
Just vague gesturing. It doesn't work.
Citation. I beg you, just one citation, please. Just one.
Just another one.
Anything.
Citations
literally anything.
Aren't that hard. I put them in all of my videos, multiple citations.
He's looking to a 150 slide PowerPoint, and he's like, it's somewhere in here, guys. Let me see if I can find it.
Speaking of citations, so I'm writing a script, right? Guys, here's some spoiler alerts for the channel. I'm working on a series where I'm going to take a look at a video from Roger from Mud Fossil U. So he's got this picture, and he's trying to explain what the picture is, but I'm trying to find that picture. Where is this? Because it doesn't look like anything that I've seen, but kind of looks like something that I do know what it is. So I couldn't find it anywhere. I reverse image searched it. I searched every keyword I could think of, everything. Just wasn't happening. So I dug into Roger's own video archives, and I found where he got it, according to him, in one of his old videos. So one of my citations in my Mud Fossil U video is going to be to Mud Fossil U, because the origin of this picture is Rod from Australia's cell phone. That's the citation. Oh, great. Thanks, Rod from Australia. Anyway, Meldeborn, who's been a member for 4 months and is at the Saropsid level, thank you very much, says Jackson's presentation style is as polished as his research methodology. So I'm glad I have you guys to comment on it to save my brain cells. Keep up the good works. Yeah, that's what we're here for, right? You don't want to expose yourself to this kind of content unfiltered. That's for us. We're the professionals. We take that danger upon ourselves, right? We're the stuntmen of pseudoscience, right? We do that hard work so that you guys don't injure your own brains, because we're trained on how to do this safely, right? Don't just go expose yourself to weapon-grade dumbtonium on your own. All right, here we go.
when we look at the data.
That is
If
somewhere.
the damning things would
Somewhere in these hundreds of slides, I've totally got it. Trust me, you guys.
be answered, that would it's all the negative stuff that goes against evolution. If that was just could be answered.
Haven't presented any, so like I'm not sure what to answer. Neither in this video nor the previous one did at any point Bad Jackson present a single thing that went against evolution. He either lied or just said things that are completely incompatible with evolution. So I don't know what things you're talking about there. Jessica for $1.99 says AIG is a stock full of Leucochloridium, which I'm going to go ahead and say is a rod-shaped bacterium because I think that would be thematic, which means we'll drink. Thank you very much, Jessica. Here we go.
Then evolution would at least be possible in my mind.
We all know it wouldn't, because you just make up things that are quote-unquote problems, so you would just make up more. Like...
No, that's a trematode.
Oh! Really? Okay.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds familiar. It's that's the trematode that makes snail eyes, like, gigantic.
Oh, goodness, gross! Those things are so gross!
Yeah.
Steve Farino, for some reason, sent a super chat in which he says, I, Dapper Dinosaur, even though I'm Dapper Dinosaur, think Jackson Wheat has excellent teeth, which I don't know that I ever assessed your teeth, Jackson, but I'm sure that they're most excellent.
I mean, they get the job done, I guess.
Go.
I don't know what this is in reference to.
I don't either. But then he also sends 3 pelagic tunicate emojis, which I knew I shouldn't have made that emoji, but also sends a Mothra. So we'll take a drink for Mothra, the queen of the monsters. Which also, I hate some of those English dubs of a few of the Godzilla movies where they use masculine pronouns for Mothra, and it's like, come on, man. You watched her lay an egg in the previous movie. Why are you using masculine pronouns right now for this animal? Mothra has traditionally been thought of as feminine, and is, in fact, an egg-laying female member of her species. Although, it does seem to be an asexual species, since we never see a male Mothra, and the female Mothra just lays eggs that hatch into more identical Mothras. So, I guess it's just an asexual species. Like the marble...
Parthenogenetic.
Yeah, like the marble crayfish.
Yeah.
Or the marble crawdad, if you're from certain parts of the country. Anyway.
Allegedly.
Let me see here. Let me try and get to show you what kind of thing that annoys me the most, and it is this
I think
origin
this video
of
should
life
be called
stuff.
like Charles Jackson desperately searches for one citation.
For like 4 minutes at this point. Goodness. He even was like, in the book I teach out of, like, you don't have that handy either? Okay.
Okay. Here we go.
Oh, okay, hold on. Too young to feel this whole... Sends 3 pelagic tunicates and then says, stop it, Patrick, you're scaring Dapper Dinosaur. Oh, but then you retracted it. Darn it. I read it anyway. Also, Dr. Tapioca Weasel has gifted 1 Dapper Dinosaur membership, so we will take a drink.
Thanks.
And that went to Jarrett Tilford. So everyone, send your tetrapod emojis on to, well, I mean, you know, in general, but for Jarrett Tilford. You don't have to tag Jarrett if you don't. Although I guess you can. Anyway, here we go.
I mean, the book, all cells come from pre-existing cells. Glencoe Biology says the cell law or the cell theory says all cells come from pre-existing cells.
Yep, and it has the unstated assumption.
That is
modern cells. I don't know what to tell you.
That is what that says. I mean, there's the whole biogenesis is not a law. Like, I don't know why creationists are always calling it the law of biogenesis. It's not a law. First of all, the idea of like laws in biology is on its face very weird if you know anything about biology.
Or laws.
Or laws, yeah, or scientific laws. But in general, biogenesis is just like when you build, you know, a cell or an organelle or something, it's going to come from pre-existing cell. That's not a super crazy observation. That's just kind of, what happens.
Right?
Cells don't assemble from inanimate materials on the reg, as far as I'm aware.
As far as I know, that is true. Also, I want to say that I just ended our poll, and with 70 votes, who is the liar? Bad Jackson, 65%. Turtles, 30%. My audience does not trust turtles. And all of biology is 4%. But I happen to know that at least one person accidentally misclicked, and I'm going to assume that at least one of those biology votes was in fact Gupdu3 accidentally picking biology. So at least among my audience, or the 70 of you who bothered to vote, Bad Jackson is by far the least trusted, followed by turtles, interestingly enough.
Surprisingly, also turtles.
Right. Followed in the far rear by all of biology, which, yes, should in fact be in rear.
Dapper, I don't know what you did to your audience to make them distrust turtles so much.
I don't know either. My goodness. It's a lot of turtle hatred that I don't think is entirely appropriate, but what do I know? All right, here we go.
In the 1850s, Schleiden and Schwann and Rudolf Virchow came up with that.
Oh, yeah, great. In the 1850s. Hey, Jackson,
Recently
remind me.
published.
How long ago was the 1850s? Was that like 170 years ago or something?
It was, Dapper.
Okay. Do you think maybe we've come up with more science, or have we stagnated, or do we now have less science than the 50s, 170 years ago? What do you think, Jackson?
If I am flipping my three-sided coin, I am gonna say we have had more science since then.
Interesting. Well, you would say that, being an evolutionist.
That is facts. I can't be trusted.
True. I mean, you're obviously an abominable liar because you don't think that bacteria evolved into pterodactyls.
I don't even let myself run with scissors.
Oh my goodness. I mean, you probably shouldn't. Not very safe. Unless they're the safety scissors. But those are horrible. They cut so poorly. Anyway, like, look, guys, some things are sharp. Making safety versions of sharp things is like, what's the point? You're gonna make like a safety butcher's knife? What's it gonna do? I don't know. Anyway, here we go.
And then it says right here in the book, Francesco Redi and Louis Pasteur prove spontaneous generation was not true.
That's it.
Does it say that
That's what you
anywhere?
came up with after 4 minutes of searching regarding a question about what would make you accept evolution. You came up with a quotation from the 1850s
About
concerning the
biogenesis.
disproving of spontaneous generation. That's what you came up with.
Yes.
Really?
Yep. That's what it. Let's take a drink for how unimaginably dumb that is, and then we'll talk a little bit about spontaneous generation. Okay, so spontaneous generation is not the same thing as abiogenesis, right? Abiogenesis describes chemical processes which allowed non-living matter to arrange itself into reproducing with heritability chemical systems that use various kinds of metabolism to drive their activities, right? Now, spontaneous generation was the generation of modern complex life, such as things like mice, flies, scorpions, salamanders, from the vital energy or the life energy of previously living things that are now dead things. And the idea was that this vital energy escaped from the dead organism and would spontaneously rearrange itself into complex modern organisms, because that's what vital energy just does. It gives dead matter the spark of life. It turns out that there's no such thing as vital energy or life energy. It's just not a thing that we can find in the real world. Life is indeed a chemical process. And spontaneous generation is still false because, rotting meat doesn't spawn flies. Flies spawn flies. What disproving spontaneous generation does not do is say anything about abiogenesis, which is the formation of the first, most simple life from pre-existing chemicals which themselves were not living. And it in no place uses vital energy. I want to make that clear. Vitalism is a falsified theory in biology that's been falsified, since the 1850s. So in order to say that I would believe in evolution, if evolution could somehow revitalize vital theory, as I guess what we're going for. I mean, do you want to bring back phlogiston theory of fire too, there, Bad Jackson? What do you think? Geocentrism? Want to bring that back? Talk about epicycles again? Is that what it would take to get Charles Jackson to reject geocentrism, as if we just brought back geocentrism? Maybe. Yeah, this is unbelievably dumb. Taking another drink. Thirsty and my brain hurts. Here we go.
And then it starts going on about how spontaneous generation could happen.
No.
Oh, Jesus
my God.
Christ.
It goes on to start talking about abiogenesis, which is not spontaneous generation, which I just explained in some detail. Go ahead, Zach. I'm taking a drink.
I think it'd be very funny if, like, somewhere in either on this page or, like, on the next page or the previous page, it was like, this is what spontaneous generation meant. This is how it differs from the origin of life, or something like that, and he's just not showing that page.
Well, look, here we have vocabulary, right? We have vocabulary words, one of which is biogenesis, one of which is protocell, and another one of which is spontaneous generation, which means this book actually makes a distinction between abiogenesis and spontaneous generation.
Yeah. It says, I think was it Francisco Redi?
Yeah.
And Louis Pasteur designed controlled experiments to disprove spontaneous generation. Their experiments and others like them convinced scientists to accept biogenesis. Small organic molecules might have formed from substances present in Earth's early atmosphere and oceans. Small organic molecules can form complex organic molecules. The earliest organisms were probably anaerobic, heterotrophic prokaryotes. Over time, chemosynthetic prokaryotes evolved, and then photosynthetic prokaryotes that produced oxygen evolved, changing the atmosphere and triggering the evolution of aerobic cells and eukaryotes. And you're right, yeah. Does it say like archaebacteria, biogenesis,
Protocell.
like
And spontaneous generation.
Spontaneous generation. So yeah, it distinguishes among all these concepts that Bad Jackson is acting like are all the same thing.
Yeah. Well,
So that's major dumb.
I feel like the abominable liar might actually be Bad Jackson here, so I'll take a drink for that. Just that massive amount of projection. And here we go.
Small organic molecules might have formed from substances present in Earth's early atmosphere and oceans. Right, I can't believe the contradiction on the same page.
I can't either, because there isn't one.
Yeah, where is it? Where is the
I also can't believe the lion on the page. It's just as much there as the contradiction.
Well, see, their experiments proved that biogenesis is true, not abiogenesis. And
Yeah, it proved that, demonstrated conclusively, that modern life comes from earlier modern life.
Technically, I don't think... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's it. I was just going to reinforce that. Go ahead.
I don't think there are any experiments that have... I don't think anyone has done experiments explicitly to prove that life comes from life. I think that's just an observation.
Yeah. Well, it was sort of like the other option, right? Because their experiments were like, we'll stop life from getting at this dead material and see if it...
Right.
Also, Inkboy, who's been a member for 10 months, is at the tetrapod level, says the biggest liar is Turtle Bad Jackson. we need to hire someone to draw a caricature of Bad Jackson as like a mutant turtle from like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That way we can have the biggest liar turtle. But then there's also a Ghidorah emoji, so we will take a drink. Basically, guys, if you're like a channel member, there's no reason for you to ever send a milestone or a super chat during a Tuesday stream without one of the kaiju emojis to make us drink. It's just do it. It doesn't cost you any extra.
then it starts going, earliest organisms are probably aerobic, heterotrophic, and later in the same book.
Anaerobic.
Look at this. This is even worse. People once thought life was able to arise spontaneously. Two scientists designed controlled experiments to disprove it. Life comes only from life, and then right under it, in the same page, it says scientific evidence.
Design control experiments to try to disprove spontaneous generation. Okay?
Which they did.
Scientific evidence supports the hypothesis that small organic molecules form from substances present in Earth's early atmosphere and oceans.
Which is not spontaneous generation.
I do not see the contradiction there.
Yeah, me neither. It's because
I am not seeing it.
It's because Bad Jackson doesn't know what vitalism is, or just doesn't care. Like, he doesn't know that these experiments disproved the vitalist theory of life, and that was a big part of what spontaneous generation was. He just thinks that, hey, spontaneous generation is life coming from things that aren't alive, so is abiogenesis, so they just must be the same thing. But no, they're not. They do have that thematic similarity, I guess. But also, Erechamian, who's been a member for 2 months and is at the tetrapod level, says, "You pressured me into it," and then sends a Godzilla and a Mothra emoji, so we will take a drink. Thank you very much, Erechamian. One of these days, we should do some Godzilla movies after this, but I've already decided it's going to be Power Rangers. Plus, I have a Power Rangers game coming up tomorrow. Presumably. All right, here we go.
Supports the hypothesis that small organic molecules formed from substances present in early Earth's atmosphere and oceans. At some point, nucleic acids must have formed. Then clusters of organic molecules might have formed protocells that might have evolved into the first true cells. If they could stop contradicting themselves,
broadly
and I'm
correct.
sorry, looking like an intellectual clown show to me. I'm like, man, if I was an evolutionist, I'd be like, let's at least get this off the same page. If this isn't seen as a contradiction, then...
Because it's not.
Then
Say it.
In that case, this, to me, is blind faith. Now, if they could actually quit saying...
I was hoping he was going to say, if this isn't a contradiction, then I don't know what is. I was really hoping he was going to say that, and like, yes, that is correct.
Right?
You do not. Dang. Sad. No, he's just an idiot. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. Also, I have a special request. Nebulan, send me a Discord DM, because I've just been sent some rather adorable fan art, and I want to know whether or not it could be featured on the channel or not, because I know that I want to make sure I have the artist's permission. So, there you go. Here we go.
I was having a nice chat with Mitch Cruzan, the vice president of the Darwin Coalition, at the Darwin Day Festival at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And I got along with Dr. Cruzan. We disagreed, but we had good conversations. And he said, well, I don't see how you could believe what you believe, Dr. Jackson. So I explained a little about creation. I said, well, I don't see how you could believe what you believe. He goes, what do you mean? He thought there was nothing wrong with evolution. He was
Imagine that. We'll just take a drink because, yeah, he believed there was nothing wrong with evolution. Now, to be fair, there are very much open questions in evolution, but that's not the same thing as a problem for evolution, right? There is that. But yeah, to say that there's nothing wrong, say, with, I don't know, young Earth creationism. Also, Space Dragon, who's been a member for 2 months at the level of Amniote, says, Dapper, you are under attack. Pick one, Godzilla, Mothra, or Ghidorah, to defend yourself from 9 billion pelagic tunicates. So here's the thing. I'm going to pick Godzilla because of those three, he is by far the best at swimming, being the only one who's semi-aquatic or amphibious or whatever you want to call it. Basically, he can breathe underwater and he swims real good. So yeah, I picked Godzilla. Also, we take a drink because that included what am I trying to say? Kaiju emojis. There you go. Maybe I'm having too much beer. Nah. I don't think that's a thing. Jackson, is that a thing? Too much beer?
I don't think that's a thing.
Also, I just watched like several times in a row Max Miller make Sumerian beer, and I kind of want to do it. I want to make some Sumerian beer. But it's also not the kind of thing you can just bottle and leave around for a while. Like, it goes bad fast, so like you better drink it. It's also not super alcoholic the way he made it, so I don't know. Anyway.
Shocked that I said that. And I said, well, you believe in spontaneous generation.
And he said, no, I don't. And if you say anything else that doesn't carry that semantic information there, Charles Jackson, we're drinking for conversations that didn't happen, because you'll be lying.
He said, no, we don't.
Oh, there we go.
Said, yes, you
That's good. Exactly what he should have said.
do. You believe it happened at least once, don't you? That there wasn't any life on Earth, and then life formed from chemicals in the ocean, right?
Which is not spontaneous generation. Spontaneous generation is from dead matter into modern complex life.
he was speechless. He'd never thought that.
No, I don't
I
believe you.
think
That's a
I think
conversation that didn't happen.
he may have been speechless at the just brain dead stupidity of
Right.
Dr. Jackson.
But I don't think it's because he never considered that he actually did believe in spontaneous generation.
No, absolutely not. No,
Yeah,
when Dr. Jackson said you believe in spontaneous generation, that subdued him into silence. It's just because he's like, oh my god, I'm dealing with an absolute moron.
Yeah, no. As Fearmonger said, r/that happened is definitely the vibe I'm getting. We're taking a drink.
Dr. Cruzan, smart man, okay, smart man, but there was some kind of a mental block that you have to have.
Is it the mental block where you know that there's a difference between dead matter, composed of the remains of modern organisms, and prebiotic chemistry? Is that the disconnect? Is the disconnect that he knows that spontaneous generation was about vitalism, and that vitalism has long since been dismissed from biology? Is that the disconnect? I don't know. Those sound like disconnects he might have.
To be an advocate of the theory.
Yeah. There's another good subreddit for this. Vishanti points out r/self-aware wolves. There's some kind of mental block. Yeah, that does sound like it should go in r/self-aware wolves. There are so many great subreddits that lots of this speech could go into.
So what would it take for me? First, they'd have to stop contradicting themselves like this. Then,
So for Dr. Charles Jackson to start believing in evolution, they would have to stop contradicting themselves by not contradicting themselves. Tell you what, Dr. Charles Jackson, when you work on your own contradictions, then maybe I'll take this seriously as a critique. Sorry, Jackson, go ahead.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to take a drink for... We need the evolutionists to stop contradicting themselves by not contradicting themselves. Yeah, here we go.
have to stop saying things that are known against the known laws of science.
Okay, example, because that wasn't one.
Stop bringing up theories that go against the data.
Such as?
And then actually present stories that might work. There is a small group of evolutionists trying to do
I wonder
this.
if that guy who asked the question is now an evolutionist.
Actually, I think he always was. I think he's a non, quote-unquote, believer who's in there.
That's possible, yeah. Because that was too good of a question.
Right?
And at the very least, if he's a creationist, sincerely asking, okay, you've said all these things that you think don't count as evidence, so what do you personally think would count as evidence? And then heard this absolute garbage answer, I personally would be like, I've been lied to.
Yeah, no, it's...
I'm in the wrong here.
Now, honestly, it's been a while since I've been a young Earth creationist, so it's hard to put myself back in those shoes, right? But I would like to think that if I heard this answer, I would be like, this is a terrible answer. And the thing is that I think that might be the case, because I actually do remember a time when a young Earth creationist came to speak at my church. And I was a young Earth creationist at the time. And he said something about how, oh yeah, we have to take Genesis 1 literally in everything that it says, because that's how it's written. So I'm like, well, okay, but what do we do then with the floodgates of heaven? Because I don't think that, the sky has gates that God opens to let the water through. He's like, well, that's just a metaphor. I'm like, oh, okay. Got it. That's just a metaphor. And even then I realized that the only reason he's saying that is because he knows that if he took that part literally, it would basically mean that he has to believe in a flat earth with a cosmic ocean above it, and that's dumb.
Yeah.
So, he was willing to cherry pick Genesis 1 anyway. Even though he's like, well, you gotta take it very literally. It's written as a historical narrative. Yeah, well, you don't, though. So, yeah.
You clearly don't, so...
That was... I was still a young Earth creationist at the time, but I was on my journey out at that point. I was like, I'm finding some flaws with this line of thinking. And, so... Anyway, here we go.
I mean, everyone should always be open to, criticizing thinking critically about the people who we consider,
Oh, absolutely.
No one is above criticism at any point ever. No one is above reproach. So, yeah, always be critical about... except for Dapper. Yeah,
Right.
but other than Dapper, take, always consider what people are saying. Don't just assume everything that they're saying is always accurate, etc.
Yeah, actually, guys, I make mistakes all the time, so feel free to call me out on them. But I will check to see if it's actually a mistake, and if I don't think it is, you haven't provided sufficient evidence, I will reject that particular criticism, because you actually have to convince me that I made the mistake, which is usually pretty easy. Like if you just tell me, hey, this, and this are factually inaccurate because place you can check here, and here. It doesn't have to be a link, but it has to at least be like the name of an article or something. Then yeah, do that. Or if it's something where I should know better, and I just made like a slip of the tongue, I'll probably figure that out right when you say it. Anyway.
And they've named their new theory extended evolutionary synthesis.
Not a new theory, it's an extension of the modern evolutionary synthesis. Not a new theory. Go ahead, Jackson.
He was talking about spontaneous generation, and he leapt from that to the extended evolutionary synthesis.
Yep.
What?
I don't know.
It had nothing to do, nothing whatsoever to do with abiogenesis. It especially didn't have anything to do with spontaneous generation.
Correct.
The extended... Okay, so very briefly, the quote modern synthesis, or the neo-Darwinian synthesis that was laid out in the 1930s by Fisher, Wright, Haldane, etc., basically combined Mendelism, so Mendelian inheritance, with natural and sexual selection that Darwin provided. Okay, so we have very early genetics, like Thomas Hunt Morgan and his fruit flies, and that figuring out like how mutation and recombination works, and you had how patterns of inheritance are passed through generations as a result of Mendel's work in the 1860s, and you had Darwin's natural selection, sexual selection, and then like early thoughts on speciation from like freaking Dobzhansky and these other guys. That was the modern synthesis, the neo-Darwinian synthesis. The extended evolutionary synthesis, which kind of started, I think, like the 1990s, was, because time passes as time is wont to do, biologists, evolutionary biologists of various sorts, including like paleontologists, came up with other mechanisms of evolution. So it's not all just phyletic gradualism. There's also like punctuated equilibrium, and there's epigenetics, and neutral theory, and endosymbiosis, and all this other stuff. Other modes of speciation. These are all things that came out after modern synthesis was formulated, and so some people think we should call the modern instantiation of evolution the extended evolutionary synthesis. I personally don't care whether or not you call it that. There are some theoretical biologists who take a big issue with that. They're like, oh, it's totally different from everything before. Like, calm down. But
yeah.
Broadly speaking, the point really is simply that we have more mechanisms of evolution now than we did previously, and that's really all there is to it. It has nothing to do with the origin of life. Now, origin of life research has continued, obviously, but that's not really dealing with the extended synthesis itself. That's not what it's about. So yeah. I tend to just say modern evolutionary theory. If somebody says, what does evolution say? I would say, the modern evolutionary theories or the current evolutionary theory says blah, blah, blah. So yeah. I don't care what you call it. Call it neo-Darwinism, call it the extended synthesis. Do not care. They're just labels.
Mm-hmm. So. All right, so here's the thing. We're going to get a bit more in, but we have just over 5 minutes left of this video. We're probably not going to finish it today, but we're also not going to pick it back up. So when we start the next Jackson with Jackson, we're going to start fresh with a new talk about a new topic, and I'm going to make Jackson Wheat brush up on that topic. Yeah, take that, Jackson.
President of the Darwin Coalition is one of the leaders in this, Massimo Pigliucci. And they have a new theory of evolution. He's one of those theoretical
biology guys I was talking about who makes a bigger deal out of this than he probably should.
Yeah.
Beyond neo-Darwinism, or the modern synthesis they call it, called extended evolutionary synthesis, that has nothing to do with fossils or DNA.
That is...
No.
Excuse me?
That's extremely wrong. I'm taking 2 drinks for that. The idea is not that you're rejecting fossils and genetics, it's that you're including new lines of potential mechanisms for biological change that is heritable. It is not to exclude those things. It includes them and is like, hey, we should include these other things. And then most biologists are just like, yeah, we're already doing that. He's like, but you're not doing it enough. And they're just like, okay.
Yeah, and that's really... That's the issue with it, like, is really that. You have Pigliucci and these other guys who are like, you're not talking about epigenetics enough. What are you talking about? We've been talking about epigenetics for the past, 30 years. What do you want? Well, you're not doing it enough. What is enough?
Yeah.
It's like, can you give us what is a quantitative measure of enough talk about a subject? What does that mean? Or,
good question.
Evo Devo or whatever the frick. Like, what do you mean when you say it's not enough? What does that mean?
Also, Ian Chen official for $2.99 redo says Knights of AIG wield their pork swords. We'll take a drink. All right. Also, good morning there, Ian Chen official. I hope that you're having a wonderful Wednesday morning. Because anyone who's given dollar redues at this time of day is Wednesday. It's Wednesday morning for them. All right, here we go. We got a little bit more Bad Jackson in, and we're gonna wrap it up pretty soon.
No genetics and no fossils. It's called phenotypic plasticity, and it's
that is again,
I hate it.
a part of the theory. That is not the whole theory, nor does it. It incorporates genetics. Like, phenotypic plasticity necessarily incorporates genetics. Because how much plasticity is allowed is like a function of your genes.
Yeah, it's almost like phenotypic plasticity is an evolvable trait, which it is.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Oh, even with the beer, this is painful.
Theory that says that when the environment changes, the organism changes to match the environment, and then somehow, and here's the magic part, somehow that gets into the DNA.
No! That is not what that is. Oh my god. Taking another drink.
Plasticity means that... So, your phenotype, when you are developing, there is a limited range of potential phenotypes that there's like a little bit of wiggle room for some of your phenotypic aspects based on your environment.
It's kind of like... For
instance...
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to give a quick one, which was to say,
shoot.
Like, say, 2 twins can grow to different heights in humans, right? However, chances are that if you take 2 twins from, say, Scandinavia, and 2 twins from, say, the swamps of the Congo, which are basically the 2 extremes for average human height, right? Scandinavia and the Congo. Even if you have the Scandinavian twins on a terrible diet, which is, one of the plasticity things is your height, and then you give the Congolese twins like the best nutrition imaginable for humans, chances are that while the Scandinavian twins will be shorter than average for Scandinavians, the Congolese twins will be taller than average for Congolese. The Congolese twins, because of their difference in genetics, are still going to, on average, in total, going to be significantly shorter than the Scandinavian twins. Also, Ian Chen, official for another $2.99 redo, says AIG helping Ukraine by sending custard launcher. So, gross. But yeah, that's... and the thing is that phenotypic plasticity doesn't feed back in, right? Like, if you take those twins... like, say, the Scandinavian twins, and then they have kids, but those kids have a great diet, they'll shoot right back up to being super tall, taller than their parents.
That was actually a thing that happened. It was the Dutch hunger winter.
There you go.
Yeah, that was a thing.
And the thing is, that doesn't feed back into the genetics. However, if someone has a mutation that takes the extreme end of their phenotypic plasticity and extends it farther into a favorable direction, then the mutation that allows the phenotypic plasticity to be extended into that new range that may itself be selected for. But the phenotypic plasticity doesn't feed back directly into the genetics.
No.
It's, oh my goodness.
These are the result of epigenetic factors. So are you methylating certain regions of the DNA more? And this relates to your diet and other factors. So no, it is not affecting the sequence of nucleotides in your DNA.
Yeah.
It is affecting the way in which certain genes are expressed to varying extents. That's what this is about.
But you know what?
That's so wrong. So wrong.
That's where we're going to wrap this up, because the rest of it is just going to be Jackson spouting other reasons why he doesn't understand what various mechanisms of evolution are, like epigenetics and like endosymbiosis and things like that, right? It's just going to keep going, just like that. So, Jackson, do you have anything that you want to plug that's coming up on your channel?
We're leaving the mammals and the ancestor's tale.
Nice.
Yay, we're going
Amnios next?
first. Yes, we are. Our next tale is the lava lizard's tale.
Ooh.
So I'm having to cram 160 million years of evolution into, 140 million years of evolution into this video. So it's we're going from, the common ancestor of all mammals backwards to their common ancestor, of all amniotes. And then we're going to bounce back up to squamates.
What?
So that'll be fun. Yeah.
Squamates are weird, man.
Squamates are very strange. I read a bunch of stuff about their transition from ovipary to vivipary, which was very interesting.
Nice. By the way, guys, that's
again.
from egg laying to giving live birth.
And they switched back in some cases.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, on this channel, we have some things coming up. Let me open up a calendar so I can take a look and keep track. Okay, so on the on Thursday, the 26th, the next video we have coming up is Taxonomy is Confusing and Scary, Unwise flood fossils, 2 out of 3. That, of course, is with Kurt Wise, where basically he just complains a lot about taxonomy being confusing to him because he doesn't understand it, apparently. It's kind of sad and very pathetic, honestly. Yeah. But that's Thursday. Come watch that. I think it'll be pretty good. I like the series. Then on Saturday, I'm not sure, but I think we're going to do a Dapper Reacts. I don't have a video to react to currently, so if you have a good way to contact me, want to send a video that you think will work, let me know. Now, bear in mind, it can't be just stupid. It has to be engaging enough and also stupid. There's a number of videos that I've rejected that are extremely stupid, but I just can't sit through something that boring. So keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be young Earth creationism, although that is where I spend most of my time. But yeah, it could also be, like quantum woo or careful with medical misinformation. It makes me really angry, so I have to be careful with that. But it could be also like New Age weirdness about consciousness and like sacred geometry or something, and how somehow that affects like the activity of light, like spirit science weirdness. It could even be flat Earth. Who knows? So yeah, if you have any of those things, send them my way, and if one of them catches my fancy as the good start to another series of videos in Dapper Reacts, do that. On the 31st, we should be doing another Kent with Bent, and then the Cambrian Bunny Awards should be coming up on the 10th or the 17th of February. I need to double check with my other panelists to find out what would be a better thing for them, which, by the way, if you haven't voted in the Cambrian Bunny Awards, those are still going to be open for a few weeks. If you need to do is go back to the nominating episode of my show. So this is the second annual Cambrian Bunny Awards nomination show. That will give you the links where you can vote for every person in each category. You vote by clicking on the link and hitting like, but I encourage you to watch the video. You know why people were nominated and why you should vote for those people. So Yeah, and the Cambrian Bunny Awards, of course, is my, well, now I can say it's my annual award show for Young Earth Creationists, where we have worst argument, worst behavior, worst use of the English language, and best overall. So, please check that out. And if any of my my moderators could get the link out for the nomination episode, that would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you very much, guys, for coming. Please do, if you have the time, the inclination, and of course the money, check out the Patreon, because I really would like that to get that up to 1,000. We are well over halfway there. I think we now need 360 something more dollars to get there. So it's a lot. I'm not going to pretend it isn't, but I think it is doable. And I would really, really like it if this channel doesn't have to rely on the whims of YouTube, because YouTube could just nuke this monetization like tomorrow. They could just be like, nope, you're done making money on YouTube. There's nothing I can do about it. So with that, guys, we're going to transition from, we're going to be transitional forms over to the end credits. And I will hopefully see all of you tomorrow for Power Rangers on Top Hats Off. Send links to that, assuming that my players are actually, you know, able to play, which would be nice. I've already had 2 yeses. I only need 1 more, and we're going to do it. It's going to be our long-delayed Christmas episode. Anyway, talk to y'all later. Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Ben Tovand, Tapioca Weasel, Denny5252, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, San, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Veed, Eleran Teller, and Pat L. Dennis. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting, so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if an annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.